long as I can remember, I've always been really competitive, which definitely feeds my fuel to go above and beyond, what if that means breaking the rules or not, or figuring out the loophole, as I like to call it. You know, we do have to play a political game in the professional world, and I mean, aside from the fact of always keeping my ethics and morals in check, because I'm a very ethical person, and I work with integrity, but that doesn't mean that I always agree with other people's ideas. So I think I've just been so competitive that I like to win. I lived in San Diego growing up, and we lived in this neighborhood where my poor neighbors, I sold them everything. I had businesses from lemonade stands to car washes, all these things, recycling. When recycling was just starting and we didn't have the recycle bins, you used to have to collect your stuff and take it down and get money. So I started with some of the other kids taking a wagon around and collecting newspapers and cans and this, that, and the other, and realized that that was a lot of sweat equity, and I wasn't getting around as quickly as I possibly could. So I then coaxed my neighbor into letting me borrow their golf cart at a young age, and I could drive around the golf cart and load on the materials. And then I realized, wow, now that I could drive this little cart around, my cart filled up so quickly that I had the capacity to even do more. So then I talked to my mom into taking the Suburban out, and we would take the Suburban around the neighborhood and fill up the entire back, because everyone loved the idea of recycling. It was kind of brand new. And then I was making a killing, 5 cents a can back then. So it was just kind of those things. How can I, instead of walking, I'll get a cart. Oh, the cart's good, let's get a cart. And it was just kind of like, how do I keep expanding? I think me just getting into the business at the age of 25, coming into Malibu, a very high-end community that deals with luxury properties, very competitive real estate market. There's 300 agents at any given time, and there's only about 300 listings at any given time on the market. And obviously all of those aren't selling. So every year there's only maybe 100 sales, plus or minus. And when I got into the business at 25, everyone told me in the business, oh, you're too young, it's not going to work, you're going to have to team up, it'll take at least 5 years. I got a lot of negativity. Me breaking into the real estate industry at that age and having my first sale for $2.8 million in 3 months really shattered that ceiling. And most of my peers and colleagues at that point were like, what did he just do to be able to do that? And what I did is I went to Pepperdine and I got a degree in advertising and marketing. And I took those tools and I really used them for 10 months while I was getting my license, and implemented a marketing strategy. So every single month I had a new mailer, or I had a new emailer, or I had a new piece that I could constantly put out to my sphere of influence. And it was networking. It's old basic sales skills, but it was really actually doing them, and doing them with intention, and doing them with thought, and doing them with a brand that I wanted to represent myself. And that brand was going to be a Malibu lifestyle, which was luxury and casual. And everything I did had to meet that look. So obviously the grammar had to be perfect. The letterhead, the stationery, the way it went in the envelope, the way I sealed it. That's why I have a glue gun, because I have a wax seal that I stamp my initial on. I mean, I go above and beyond, but that's the thing that makes my clients go, this guy's serious. I like this guy's presentation. Let's at least give him a chance. And if I could get in the door, that's all I wanted. I didn't always get it when I got in the door, but the point was I just needed the phone call. It doesn't really matter what your market is. It's just that you have to understand your market, and then you have to appeal to that market. So if I'm selling in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it's, well, what do people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, what do they buy? What do they like? Where do they hang out? What makes them tick? And so it's basically them putting together your marketing materials, so you're reaching the audience that you want to work with. And, there's lots of books that pin zip codes across the country, and it'll get down to the kind of yogurt that they buy. So you can really understand where people hang out, what they like, what is making them hire one person over another. And as soon as you understand what's making the decisions, subconsciously or consciously, then you can package yourself to appeal to that market, whether it's high-end, low-end, mid-range, short sales. It doesn't matter. you have to know what your market is or what market you want to appeal to and then adapt to that. And then a lot of it still comes down to who you know and how you build those relationships. And those relationships are really all built on integrity. I mean, when you're in a sales business, your reputation is everything. So, you have to have all those things, and then you still have to always fall back on making the right decision. Even when you think a short-sighted money-making decision is going to benefit you, in the long run, I've learned when your gut says, no, it's not working, it doesn't feel right, that's the time when you pull out and you set a boundary, and then you actually gain the respect of the client, or you gain more respect for yourself as an individual. And then you actually, what I've learned is when I first got into business, I would take on any client. The first year, I had toxic clients because I took them all on. And as soon as I started to learn that I didn't need this client, or I didn't have to have that client, and I said no, then I stopped attracting those people, and I invited different people into my life. I did not because I wanted to, it just happened. The most memorable one, or the first one, I was only in the business like 6 months. I was selling this house for $3 million. I was representing the seller. It was a very difficult sale. The house was a wreck. It was abandoned. There was a homeless person. I mean, it was just like everything possible wrong. There was a list pendants, which means legal issues on it. So it was a very complicated sale. So I was navigating my way through that transaction, but it was a very good investment, and a lot of buyers, very savvy buyers, were coming through because they could potentially make a lot of money on this. So I had this one buyer come through. He had his family there, and he pulls me aside and says, look, I want to make an offer. What's the bottom that the seller will sell it for? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you that, and I don't actually know that. You just have to write an offer. He goes, well, listen, whatever, if you can get it for me for this price, I'll give you one of my cars, and I'll sign over the title, and we won't tell anyone. You don't have to pay taxes. It's this, that. I'm just thinking, I'm like 25 years old. This doesn't really feel right. You can't just give me a car to make a real estate transaction. The deal can't be that good. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not lining up. And I just looked at him. I said, I'm not going to accept your car. I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. None of this is going to work. Your approach is wrong. I said, I'm sorry, I don't think we're going to be able to do business together. And that was the end. He looked at me like I just slapped him in the face. And I like felt so good and big in my skin. And it just kind of set that boundary, which is kind of breaking the rules in that regard, because there's a lot of people that will break the rules ethically. And I think a lot of times breaking the rules are standing up for what's right. When you expose yourself, like I did on a reality show, which started out on the first season, there's been 4 that have aired. It was all about business and it was all about real estate. That was okay. I'm just a real estate professional, and I was one of many on the show. But then when they redid the format and there were 3 of us, and then it got very personal along with business for the next 3 years, there were definitely challenges along the way. The thing that challenged me with the producers in the show was the personal part, because they wanted so much personal. When I decided to come out from being straight polyamorous, as I called it, to being gay on national television, that was a big decision for me, and that was definitely pushing the envelope and kind of breaking the rules, because there wasn't a lot of that on TV. There still isn't that much of that on TV. And but what I found is that most of my fans didn't love me when I was straight, because they were picking up on something that wasn't genuine. And then when I was bisexual, they hated me because I was undecided. Very few people that supported that decision. And then when I fully came out and did the No Hate campaign and brought my boyfriend on TV, it was full embrace by all of my fans. They just became, I got so many emails and so much love on Facebook and Twitter and all of those things that I knew I made the right decision to share that part of my life with the rest of the country. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because I knew what a struggle it was for me. And if I had the opportunity to take someone else through that ride and share what it's like to have to struggle in the shoes, whether you're on TV or not, then maybe I could change the way other people's families thought about their own children, or I could inspire other people to go through the same process. And it really had an impact, and it really affected me in a great way. Are my clients going to freak out? Am I going to lose business from this decision of mine? Am I getting too personal? You know what I mean? All those were the conflicts that were holding me back. And then I think I did a pro and con list, and I kind of looked at the pros and looked at the cons, and I decided Malibu's a liberal enough community that I probably won't be ostracized if I own who I am, because there's so many eccentric people here. And I think at the end of the day, my decision was in my pit of the stomach and just said, this is me. That I have to be me. I'm not going to apologize for being me. I'm not going to regret for making a decision that allows me to be free in my own skin. And once I felt that inside, that was my decision internally, then everything else was very clear. And I wasn't afraid of what the impact or the reaction was going to be at all. At the end of the day, the people who have an issue with it actually have their own issue with it. So I still encourage someone to be who they are in their own community. If you're getting resistance or you're getting negative energy coming at you, it's because they're struggling with something. They're uncomfortable with something. They can't handle that you are so comfortable in your own skin. So it's actually a compliment, and it actually inspires me to own it even more when I feel people resist it, because it makes me curious as to why you're resisting it to begin with. What's going on with you that makes you uncomfortable because I'm so happy in my skin? And when you think of it that way, it's like you can go anywhere and not even, worry. And if you get beaten or if you get all those things that bad people do, you're hopefully changing the way they think afterwards. And you may have to suffer a little bit along the way, but really you're making the right decision if you're your true authentic self. I mean, being true to yourself doesn't mean you're right. I think if you have the ability to be true to yourself and speak the voice, or from your perception, you have that job for a reason. You were hired that job for a reason. If you're sitting in a sales meeting and you're talking about the budget and you feel that the money could be spent better in a different way, and you don't speak up, you're not doing your job. If you do speak up and you're wrong, or not wrong or right, but if the meeting comes to a consensus after much dialogue because you created some dialogue, because you felt differently or you had a different perspective, then one, you've done your job, and two, you've negotiated or communicated your way through it as a group, and you may also change your perspective. Believe me, I've been stuck a million times, but you hit that kind of roadblock and you don't know what it is, or you're afraid to speak up, but every time I learned the lesson over and over again, it's because I decided to move forward with my gut, and we all have a gut. If you don't have a gut, you're dead, So wherever your connection is, and if you don't have that connection, that's the first step. Because a lot of people don't. I meet a lot of voids, But once you get that connection, and you are able to listen to it and then verbalize it, if you can do that, you're going to have followers no matter what.